Chapter 1, Topic 1.3, Microbes in Humans. Microbes can benefit humans and they can harm humans. In this topic, we're going to be talking about humans using microbes and microbes using humans. At the end of this recorded topic lecture, you should be able to meet the following objectives. Explain the ways that humans manipulate organisms for their own uses, and summarize the relative burden of human disease caused by microbes. Under the topic of humans using microbes, we will be talking about domestication, biotechnology, genetic engineering, and bioremediation. We have been using microbes for thousands of years to make products we want. Some of those microbes are bacteria, yeast, and mold. Some of the most famous examples of products that microbes have made for us are bread and alcoholic beverages such as wine here. Microbes also make other things such as cheeses, yogurt, sour cream, and even acetone that you can buy at the store and is the main component of your nail polish remover. But going back to bread and wine, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or baker's and brewer's yeast, was the first microbe to be domesticated. Bet you hadn't thought of that little packet of yeast in the same class as your dog, huh? But it is. We have grown and modified Saccharomyces for thousands of years, selecting the cultures of yeast that had the traits we wanted and eliminating, in the case of yeast throwing out, the cultures that didn't do what we wanted. We did the same thing with dogs, cats, cattle, wheat, apple trees, and on and on. When we use a microbe in an industrial setting, rather than in your kitchen, we call it biotechnology. That involves the factory production of all of the food items I mentioned before, as well as things like rubbing alcohol, manufactured human insulin, and antibiotics such as penicillin. Recently, we've been able to speed up the process of changing microbes to suit our needs by genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is an area of biotechnology that manipulates the genetics of microbes, plants, and animals for the purpose of creating new products or getting them to make the product of another organism. I'm going to use the example of manufacturing human insulin as my example of genetic engineering. In type 1 diabetes, the patient's pancreas has stopped making insulin. Insulin is a hormone that is vital to managing blood sugar levels. Without an adjustable supply of insulin, diabetics would go blind, have their kidneys fail, and/or develop sores that never healed and would lead to gangrene and amputations. Eventually, diabetics would die from the condition in the good old days, unquote. Then a technique was developed for isolating insulin from the pancreases of slaughtered pigs. This vastly improved the health and survivability of diabetics. Unfortunately, pig insulin is not exactly the same as human insulin, and patients would develop allergies to it. So then they would switch them to cow insulin until they became allergic to that, then horse insulin. Then they may have tried goat and sheep insulin, but I haven't heard of those being used. Then we developed the ability to take genes from one organism and place them in another. This process is called recombinant DNA technology. We could take the gene for human insulin and insert it into E. coli, which I've drawn right here. And E. coli is a common human intestinal bacterium. Or they can take the gene and insert it into our friend Saccharomyces. Because the genetic code is the same for bacteria and yeast as it is for humans, bacteria and yeast make human insulin. Today, diabetics use human insulin and rarely develop allergies to it. Isn't technology great? Bioremediation is another way to make use of microbes. Bioremediation is using microbes to restore stability to an environment or to clean up toxic pollutants. Many microbes break down chemicals in the environment. They break down the cellulose in leaves and fallen trees so other organisms can use the nutrients in them. They are also found to break down human industrial waste. For example, soil bacteria and yeast have been found that just love to eat petroleum. We've grown them in large numbers and used to spray them on oil spills to help clean up the spill. That has worked very well for bioremediation on beaches and marshes, but it didn't work very well on the ocean for the Deep Horizon Gulf spill. Apparently the waves kept spreading the bacteria so they weren't in the high concentrations needed. The oil on the bottom of the Gulf is being degraded by naturally occurring microbes, but as they increase in numbers, they use all the oxygen in the area, creating dead zone, or areas with no animal life. Eventually, the area will bioremediate itself to where it was before, but we humans are impatient and want to see it happen quickly, which is why we are continually working to find new and better ways of performing bioremediation. But all is not sunshine and light in the world of microbe-human relations. Not all microbes are useful to us. In fact, they cause us great problems. Although the vast majority of microbes either don't bother us or are actively helping us, a few will spoil the reputations of all of them. Those are the pathogens or disease-causing organisms. They are the microbes or helminths that live off of humans and cause harm or disease in the process. According to the text, there are nearly 2,000 different microbes that can cause infectious disease. That is a very small percentage of the billions of different types of microbes in and on the earth. But as you can see from the chart, they are in the top 10 for causing death, both in the US and worldwide. Some diseases that we thought we had conquered, like tuberculosis and cholera, have been coming back with a vengeance. These are considered emerging diseases. Some diseases are new, at least to science, like the SARS-like outbreaks that we have had among visitors to the Middle East. Some diseases were thought to be non-infectious and are now being found to be at least caused either directly or are influenced by pathogens. Cancers are caused by a combination of many environmental factors, and viruses are found to be one of these, especially in the case of cervical cancer. I'm sure you're all familiar with the human papillomavirus vaccine, which is given to prevent cervical cancer. Some lymphomas have also been linked to viruses. Well, that's it for this topic. You should now be able to explain the ways that humans manipulate organisms for their own uses and summarize the relative burden of human disease caused by microbes.